When you think of the word father, you would hope that it would mean superhero. Um, what what did that mean to you as a child?
Well, now it's different than what I thought of as a child. In the first few years of my life, I thought my dad was a superhero, even though he was abusing me every day. Because when you're 4, 5, 6 years old, and it happens, and that's all I ever had known every day of my childhood being abused, I thought that was normal. I remember going to grade school in kindergarten and first grade and wanting to ask one of my friends, Larry, I remember Larry Rankin in my grade school. I wanted to ask Larry, hey, what does your dad do to you? Type of thing, because I thought it was so
So
normal.
did you ever ask any of your friends if they were experiencing the same things that you were going through?
No, I never discussed it with anybody. Um, Although it ran through my mind, I wonder what their dads do to them. I just thought that was a common thing that if you're a child, because that's what my dad would tell me. That's how he groomed me to accept it and lay back and take it and perform and do anything he asked and let him have any part of my body he wanted at any given time. Um, but as the years went on, around I believe 10, 11, I started to realize this isn't right. And then when I got to my teenage years, when I started having a girlfriend, and I would be having a date with my girlfriend, and then coming home, and within 30 minutes, kissing my girlfriend goodnight and kissing my dad in bed, I knew that something was wrong, and that's when those years got into my head and really, really messed it up, rewired me than probably what a normal person should be. So I knew at that point that I had a father that was totally obsessed and demented with sex.
Were you ever at a point where you shared any of this with your girlfriend at the time?
Yeah, I never shared it with anyone. Um, I didn't have many girlfriends. I mean, look at me. I didn't attract anybody, but I I married my high school girlfriend. I know now that she was abused. I didn't know it then because we never talked about it. But when you're in your teenage years, and even today, uh, before I came out and started telling everybody, the manhood in me um, didn't feel comfortable, and I thought everybody would look at me when I finally realized it was wrong in my earlier years. I was going to do anything I could to protect that I wasn't abnormal because that's what my dad was doing to me. So no, I never had a discussion with anybody about what happened to me as a child and all the way through my teenage years.
Like, what is going through a father's mind mentally, mind, body, and soul to actually do this type of thing to their own child?
Well, that's the question. I think that's the $64,000 question that I believe everybody would love to know the answer to that. I don't know my dad's reasoning. I do believe my middle brother, the one that was 5 years older than me, I believe he was abused. He did witness me being abused on a couple of occasions because we shared the same room. So when dad would come in the middle of the night, he'd look over in the twin bed on the other side of the room. And if Tony was asleep, he would start working on me. Um, but a couple of nights, I remember looking over and Tony was looking at us with big head, ear, eyes, and headlights look. But I think my older brother probably was too, but we never discussed it. Um, but I think my father had lots of issues. Obviously, it wasn't just a one time thing Dad would abuse me a couple times a day if the opportunity arose. Every night for sure. I mean, it was just a given. When they all went to bed, about a half hour later, I knew it was coming to me. When the lights went out and Mom started going to bed, I could hear the doors close, the TV turn off, the doors close, and I could start seeing and smelling Dad smoke a cigarette down the hallway. And when I knew that was going to happen, and I saw that, I knew it was just within minutes that he would be entering into my room. And that vision of his shadow coming in my bedroom door every night is where I got the title of the book, Shattered by the Darkness. The darkness is my dad as you read the book. And I believe that with the things that he did to me, not that abuse is normal, but things were so out of the realm of normalcy that I don't know what the reason would be, except that maybe possibly he was abused as a child and it got him in that mindset to continue that on. But some of the things that he would do to me, and the gang raping with his friends, and holding me down, and them all taking turns on me, obviously just isn't something that a father and a child should ever normally even find acceptable at all. I don't know if I answered your question completely, but I don't know what caused him to turn like that. And the way he loved me was by abusing me in that weird sort of way. That's the only time that I felt loved by him, is when he was using a part of my body for his own pleasure. And when that stopped at almost my 17th birthday, I remember him walking out of the room. And that's an unbelievable story. But when I finally pushed back and fought, I told him that if he touched me again, I swear to God, Dad, I will tell everybody what you're doing to me. And he kind of leaned back and did a little grin, went to the bedroom door, opened the bedroom door and looked back at me. And he said, "Okay, son." No, he said, "Okay, good night, Greg." And when he called me Greg, that was the first time I remember him ever calling me Greg. It wasn't son anymore. It was Greg. And from that point on, he never called me son again. And I was almost 17 years old. And I remember, and this is going to sound weird to some people, but if you've been abused, you're going to be able to relate to it. I remember inside wanting to call him back, because I knew once he closed that door and the look on his face, I just lost my dad. There was never another time that he ever touched me, but at that point, I was just an acquaintance of his. We talked about the weather. We never had another conversation. It was like, okay, since I can't use him anymore, he's no longer my son. He just lives here. And that was painful. And I really, when he walked out, I almost called him back. "Go ahead, Dad, come back. Do what you want. I'll do better for you. I'll do whatever you want. Twice as good as I ever have." Which sounds strange, but I knew I lost it. I lost him.
I understand where you're coming from with that, because it's almost that in those moments, that's where you bonded with him.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that your abuser can become someone who, it's almost like you kind of grow maybe like a dependency.
Well, around 12 years old, my mom got a job that took her out of the house from Monday through Friday. When that happened, I think that was probably her own personal savior for her to get out of the abuse herself, because I'm sure she was abused and beaten. I've seen her beaten all the time. For her to get out of the house was her savior. So Monday through Friday, maybe even late on Sunday night, she would leave town and wouldn't come back till late Friday night. When Dad did that, and I was almost 11, 12 years old, the abuse escalated. It went from here to here just overnight. At that point, I had to sleep in the same bed with him every night. I had to take a shower with him every night. I never took a shower alone again. I don't know if he ever took a shower alone. If I was home and he was going to take a shower, he would call me in and I'd have to get in the shower with him, and he would abuse me during the shower instances. And that happened all the way up to, so if you can imagine me being 16 years old and sleeping with my father. And it wasn't just cohabitating the same bed, it was his arms around me, his hands all over me, him kissing me until he would fall asleep, and abusing me, and getting to his actual excitement and finishing, and then he'd go off to sleep every night. And then in the middle of the night, he would sometimes wake up and start in again, as if I was his spouse. And I remember, cooking dinners for him. He'd come home from work, and I'd be working and cooking a hamburger helper or whatever on the stove. And, he'd take these work boots off. He'd come straight over to the stove and put his arms around me and lay one on me as if I was his spouse in a weird way. And that was really, really difficult. So I missed when it ended. I missed the emotional contact because that's all I had with him, and it was gone. And that was really hard to deal with. And still to this day, I still have instances of I wonder if that shame and guilt that comes in, if I wouldn't have stopped it earlier, if I didn't cause it myself, and how you start playing the mind games.
What was your mother doing? What was she possibly going through? Did she ever notice that something was going on with you guys? Can you kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, we came from a very, very upper middle class, predominantly white neighborhood. My mom and dad drove Lincoln Continentals and Cadillacs. We had the nicest house. We had an in-ground swimming pool out back. We became the party place. My mom and dad were very well known in the clubs and the organizations. Dad, president of Lions Club. Mom, in the sororities and the card clubs and all those things that they did together. And they were just well known in the community as very affluent. And we had everything we wanted material wise. I remember I had the choice at my 16th birthday, do I want a brand new car or a grand piano? And I chose a grand piano because I love playing the piano. And after I got the grand piano for my birthday, they turned right around and bought me a brand new car. From the outside looking in, you would think we were the perfect family. And abuse is so hard to try to put into a cage or a box, because I want to be honest with you, it happens everywhere, every part of town, every economic class, every color of skin, every type of education. It doesn't matter if you're the president of or CEO. And we've seen that, have we not, in the news? People in the CEO statures are abusing their secretaries and everybody that works with them underneath. And and churches, Rotary clubs, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, God forbid, the places where they ought to be protected. My mom was abused by my dad, I think, daily, physically, mentally, emotionally. He had a temper that we could be literally laughing around the dinner table, and one wrong word or even indicating the wrong attitude that kids do, and everything would go from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, just boom, immediately. And it wouldn't just ruin the moment, it would ruin the whole evening. So you always was walking through the house on eggshells. And I know Mom experienced that all through her marriage. before she divorced him. And they got divorced the day that I left for college. Back to your question, I think she was abused. I think she had to probably know that I was abused. But I think back in that World War, after post World War II generations, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Right.
We wasn't ever allowed to talk about anything that happened behind our doors in our home. This is the bloodline. You don't tell anybody anything. And it was about anything. It didn't matter what it was about. You didn't share. And I think mom knew better, and she may have even feared her life. I don't think there was ever a time that I noticed that dad was going to hurt her too bad physically, besides a slap or two that I saw all the time. But I think she was just in safe mode, and then she ignored it. And parents that are listening, we can't ignore it anymore. I think a lot of times we turn a blind eye to it and a deaf ear, and the children are the ones that are getting the blunt end of the stick in so many ways. We have to fight for the kids and be a champion for them that we need to be. That's our role.
I've experienced sexual abuse as well as gone through domestic violence, and I am currently in a situation where I have gone no contact. I stayed in it longer than I should have. It's like, what does that really mean when you're actually going through your process? Denial, and then as a parent, you want to keep your family together. And sometimes, if there's a lack of resources, if there's a lack of knowledge, sometimes families are able to kind of pacify you through the situation as well, where they'll say, oh, it's not that bad. Consider yourself lucky because so and so from down the street and around the corner is going through much worse than what you're going through. And it's really unfair, the innocent ones. The way that I've been able to forgive is to say, you know what, it's probably because of their past, and then their past has a past, and so on. Parents, we can't stay silent anymore. We do have to do what we need to do in order to keep our children safe.
Yeah.
It's
in your own instances, we have not talked about particulars. We've had discussions, but nothing on your particular situation. But let me just challenge you and just ask you a couple questions, if I could. How much does control play in that relationship with you and whoever you was abused with, and with you and whoever you got involved with in a relationship later on in years that became a situation too? Doesn't it always seem to be about that one word, control?
Yes.
Absolutely. And they control everything.
Yes.
And I think that's why Dad would literally haunt me everywhere that I would go, even when I was 12. I think I was 12 years old and I got a job in a restaurant washing dishes just because I wanted to get out and work and get away. And I'll be doggone if just as soon as I got the job, Dad every night was there drinking coffee from the time he got off work until they closed. And it was just to let me know I'm here and I'm watching you. And even in Little League, when I finally got the awesome thrill of going to the big city and play Little League and be with other kids from other cities and have fun with them and get out of the country type of thing, he became the assistant coach as quick as he could. So it was that time, and he abused me during Little League games. And I talk about that in my book. It's always, and people that are listening, that is the manipulation, that's the brainwash, that is the way they groom and tool. They want to control you to where your mind actually, God forbid, goes, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, at least I get to drive that kind of car. Oh, I get, every now and then I'll get an extra gift. It's worse. I've had people in my counseling sessions that will actually, when I'm counseling them, in marital counseling, they will say, "Oh yeah, he hits me, but not any more than what I deserve." And I'll go, "What? What do you mean not any more than you deserve? You deserve zero. What?" And it's, yeah. And how do we get to that point in life where we accept it? And as parents, that's where I think we need to draw the boundaries and set the guidelines of, hey kids, this is what I will not ever do to you, and don't you dare let anyone else cross that line. And I will protect you from that. Here's the secret word or the password that we will use to make sure that if you ever want to call me, all you have to do is say, "Hey, how's the cat?" And I'll know you're in a situation where I'm going to come and grab you out of it, but have some kind of code word and be their protector. We are God-given parents of these kids, not friends. We're not given these children as blessings to be their best friend. We are to be their protector, their champion, their hero, to make sure nobody comes into my house and hurts my kids instead of the opposites happening. And that's just so wrong of what our society has done, and it has done for years. But can you imagine right now what's going on with the quarantine situation? Not only do these kids not get to go out to the school and meet their friends, they are being held captive in a home that's abusing them, usually from after school till the beginning of the morning. Now it's all day long. It's terrible what's happening right now. We've got to get them back safe.
We got into this whole quarantine situation with COVID. I instantly went there in my mind, oh my goodness, all of the kids who are going to be abused. I mean, I can only imagine what is going on right now. And I really thought about all of the girls who would end up pregnant during this time and what that would even be like. Young girls who are, you know, who are in the beginning stages of puberty. I'm praying so much for you guys. I really am.
We know you have a situation that, stress is here at a normal level. And then you have this home now where everybody is staying within the same walls all day long. And the economy or jobs are being eliminated. And now dad's stress level's up to here. Mom just lost her job. Now the normal stress level's this high, but now it's up to here because of just what's going on in the world. And they got cut in pay. They're only getting to work 3 out of 5 days because the company can't afford to pay 5 out of 5 or whatever the situation is. This causes more stress. Who do you think they take the stress out? They normally take it out on the kids anyway, and you put fuel on the fire, and the kids are even at more danger. And I think on the other side of this, we're going to have a mental health issue with children and adults that is going to be second to none. We're going to really have to stay open late to be able to handle all of these people that need love, comfort, and resources to get back to normalcy if they can.
Would you say that sex is a vice? Like how people are, they become drug addicts. They turn to drugs when they're stressed. Would you say that sex is also one of those vices?
Well, yeah, I think sex is a powerful drug that gets into people's minds because I can even see how it progressed in my own relationship with Dad, of starting out relatively simple and easy and fast to very complex, very demented, asking other people to be involved. It seemed like it just kept growing more and more and more evil. And that's the problem with pornography and anything. You'll get a taste of it, and then you start wanting a bigger piece of the pie. And before long, pie doesn't even satisfy you. You have to bring in devices and other things, and yeah, it definitely is a tool that can be manipulated into people's minds, and it gets completely out of control before they even realize how bad it can get.
What kind of person accepts an invitation to participate or witness his friend sexually abusing his own child? How does this even happen?
I don't know if the first time was planned or not. I keep thinking about that night. It was a big swimming pool party at the house. Um, we had a large in-ground concrete pool, and the people would start drinking, and they would all start throwing coins in the deep end of the pool. And at night, it was kind of darker. They had lights all around the property and the pool. And I would dive to the bottom and pick them up, and I'd get to keep all the money, all the change that was collected. And it just became, hey, let's see if we can get Greg to, how fast can you get this quarter? And I was 12 years old, and I would dive in and get it, and then bring it up and set it on the edge. And I remember the first night vividly, as if it happened yesterday. Dad told me to collect my money. It's time for bed. And I got out of the pool, scraped off all the money off the edge of the pool, went to my say goodnight to everybody, went to my room with the towel and the change, and I put the change and even started piling all the change on my dresser and nickels, dimes, quarters, and back in those days, Kennedy half dollars, and it started drying off. And when I was drying off, I immediately turned around and saw my dad with four of his friends behind me. And they just immediately turned me around, and they knew what they were there to do. And they all took an arm and a leg and had me spread eagle, first face up. And I remember being face up and them doing everything they could to my body, my mouth, and different parts of my body, and fondling me too. I remember Dad wasn't involved. Dad never touched me that night. He stood off just on the other side of them like this, with almost like this is one of the proudest moments of his life. He's doing something for his friends that only he could give. And the quality of this, the skin of this child, just enjoy it, guy. It was almost like that kind of mentality. He's all yours. Do with him what you want. And I remember, and I don't want to be too graphic, but I could literally stand up and show you on my legs, inside of my thighs, that I have scars today from those men that didn't take their pants all the way down, and the zipper heads of the Levi's that they had on dug into my legs so much that it left me permanent scars. I probably needed stitches that night. It was just all up and down my legs because the hardness and the force that they had on me. I don't remember any cuts on my face, but I do up and down my legs, and those are still there. And the thing I think that really messes me up is that the people in that first gang rape that night was one of Dad's friends, the chief of police in town, the state's attorney in town, and the host of the radio talk show in town. These were the leaders of the community. I was 12 years old. Who in God's name was going to believe a 12-year-old kid up against these people? And these were the people that I should have been looking up to as my models, as my heroes, my dad, the police, the radio show host, the lawyer in town that was predominant, really prominent. But that was the ones that did it.
Trust the word of a 12-year-old up against these people. I mean, to be able to imagine a lawyer a police chief. Remind me of what your father's occupation was again?
My dad built and painted oil rig machinery and trucks. So he was a welder and a painter, a really hard worker. And his friend worked with him there. So he wasn't predominantly a job like that, but it was a hard worker that he did.
To be able to do something like that together, and then to bring that to a child, it's like the only thing that's going on in my mind is what in the world are we actually up against as people who are trying to have a voice. I just want to say that you are so brave to tell your story and to have endured so much. I mean, that is it's rough to hear. And like I said before, I've gone through my own journey as well. And so it's not easy.
No, and I think as I look back on it, nobody would have believed me. But bringing it up to last week, nobody would have believed the Floyd family if it wasn't for the videotape. And I think if we can get one positive thing out of all this is thank goodness we can see what's actually happening now. That you can't lie and get a good lawyer and work your way out of it much anymore, although it probably happens. No, let's be honest. We know it happens every day all around the country and the world. But those that violate that trust and their standards and their ethics and get caught on video, there's no other answer but guilt. And I thank goodness that we actually have that kind of technology now, because it's been going on for years and years and years to everybody on every source. But now that, hopefully it can change. And that's, because people will not believe an African American or a 12-year-old white kid. They won't believe when you're up against the establishment. And that's why things have to change.
What kept you motivated, and what was the driving force behind your resilience?
Resilience is an unbelievable word. I do a lot of training with teachers and people that work with children. And I think it's important to recognize the signs in an abused child. But I think it's important to understand my way of coping with it was to become the perfect child. So I didn't act out in rage at school. I didn't almost flunk out and get detention and all of those things. I became the best kid in class, the class president, and I can go right on down. I was never late on an assignment. Matter of fact, I was always early. First to school, last one to leave, did my work. I became everything I could. And that's how I adapted, was to become excellent so nobody would ever look and go, what's wrong with Greg? What? So it would just be the opposite. He must be okay, because I didn't want anybody to find out what I was dealing with. And I think the resiliency, every child has it, but they have to be able to discover it within themselves. It isn't something you learn. It can be taught to find it in you, but it's already there. So anybody that's listening to me right now, whether you're being abused by your husband or by bullying at a coworker situation, you don't need to go buy a book to figure out how to get it. You've got the resiliency already in you. Just reach down and grab it and apply it, and use people that say you'll never be anything. You're not going to amount to anything. You're the most ugly and worthless person on the face of the earth. And I still have issues with hearing that in my mind. with the way my dad talked to me, but to use that as a stepping stone of I'll show you, that'll be fuel to my tank to prove you wrong and reach down and grab even more and just will not buckle under. And I did that. And it got me through high school. It got me through college. It got me through all of my degrees. It got me through to my PhD. And it got me to where I am in business today at work, is by proving to myself, basically, Dad, I wasn't worthless like you told me I was. But I still have to prove that myself to myself every day. And it messes me up. Every time I look in the mirror, I see something ugly. And I shouldn't have to, but that's still a process that I'm dealing with. You are a masterpiece. You are a creation that God created to be something special that only you can do. And you have a destiny. And it's not to lay on your back and be abused by somebody else. It's to rise up, dig deep, and become everything that you were meant to be. And that's basically what I had. That's my mantra. And I had to tell myself that still every day, every day.
I'm going to do another video, actually a separate video on some tools on how to build up resiliency in yourself, get your confidence up, boosting self-esteem, with positive affirmations, a vision board, and different, even journaling and things like that. So I do appreciate you saying those things. What keeps us silent and tap into like the siblings and what makes a sibling also abusive instead of protective? So maybe we can do that, and then we'll do one more question and then kind of like wrap it up.
I think people don't know how to handle abuse, especially when it's normal in the house. If it's something that's not out of, I think my brothers, none of them stood up to protect me. I think because in their mind, the one was 5 years, their mind was, oh, thank God it's gone to somebody else. And I couldn't get out of it. There's no way out of this because it was told to us. There's no way out of this. We're out here in the middle of the country. Nobody's going to believe them anyway. And it just endured. But I did realize, now that I look back, that my oldest brother left the house as soon as he could. He got out of there at a young age. My middle brother, that's deceased now, got out of there at an early age. And, I stayed around until college and then got out and never went back. But it was just the knowledge of, I think, that there's no way out. And it was just going to be this way till the end. I don't know if that completely answered your question, but I do know I didn't want anybody to know what was happening to me, and I kept it silent for over 30 some years. That was what the damage did to me physically and emotionally. Obviously, the abuse messed me up emotionally and physically. But keeping it silent and those ACEs, that adverse childhood experiences, messed me up physically to where I almost died with having to have open heart surgery at 46 years old. And the reason now that I look back on that is because I held everything in. And if you put a soda bottle up here and keep just shaking it and shaking it and shaking it, mentally was what I was doing in my life. And I just kept pushing the pressure down. It eventually, something had to give. And it just popped. And the valve in my heart just popped. My body couldn't take it anymore. We're not designed to endure that much pain. Just not designed to hold it in. We have to have a champion, a buffer. And when you look up toxic stress and ACEs, it always says this will damage you permanently or health-wise or emotionally wise if you do not have an adult buffer to offset that pain. And we need to be now the adult buffers for other people that could be hurting. And whether it's somebody at your school, in your family, in your neighborhood. We ought to rise up and now be champions for the people that don't have a voice, and just say, hey, are you okay? How can I help you? And listen and be that champion for them.
There are some people who would say, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to handle this. What is step number one?
Couple things. It depends on what age you are. But the first thing I would always recommend that if you're in the middle of abuse right now, you have to contact somebody now. Don't listen to the rest of this webinar. Get off. Talk to somebody now. And there's 800 numbers everywhere in every state, every city, advocacy and centers. And you can at least call, and if anything, call me. Call me anonymously, and my phone rings. I'll give you my cell phone number, and I answer it every chance I get, most of the time, all the time, unless I'm on another call or at a hospital meeting or something. And tell somebody, you got to at least get it out.
Right.
When people call me from around the world and say, hey, Greg, I have a story to tell. Okay, tell me the story. I never find out their name. I will find out normally what part of the world are you in. And while I'm listening to them tell me the story, I'm typing in New Zealand. I get a lot of calls from New Zealand. I don't know why, but I do. New Zealand, and I'll type in New Zealand and try to find a helpline. And I always give them that, saying, hey, if you want to proceed with this, thanks for sharing that with me. But if you want to talk to somebody locally and get protection and help, here's the number. But so I think the first thing to do is to get immediate help if you're currently in it. If you've already been through it and it's been a few years past, a couple things, and I know we're getting close to time, but a couple things I ask you to do. One is write it down, journal it. My new book that's coming out next month, I'm going to have a companion journal that's going to teach you how to journal these experiences. But journal, write it down. What did it feel like? What did it smell like? What were the feelings and the emotions going around? What time of the day was it? What did, every emotion and sense that you can put it on paper and get it out of you. You don't have to share that with anybody. And just keep writing all of those emotions and those situations down. Then, if you can, gravitate to somebody that you trust and say, hey, can I share with you one page out of my notebook? Don't let them read it all, but just let them read one page and then watch the reaction. And if they react of, oh my gosh, what can I help you with? I didn't know this. Then trust them if they're trustable and share those emotions with them. But I always advocate to put it on paper. Protect the book. I lost all mine as a kid. They all disappeared from my closet. And I know my mom and dad got a hold of them. At least my dad did, and burned them or whatever. I'd love to have those back now, just to be able to remember what I was going through. But that kind of release will be a big benefit. And again, if you don't have anybody to do that to, I'll give you my email. And I do this with dozens of people every day. They write me, and I will ask a question. Tell me about triggers, things that set you off. How do you deal with stress? And then it allows them to vent with me. I do nothing but put it in a file, and I don't even know their names, just their email addresses. Maybe sometimes they give me their, but it allows them, and over time they go, wow, I never knew I could feel this free. There's some baggage. Everybody's carrying baggage. If we're in the same elevator, there'll be 4 or 5 people in an elevator. Everybody's got their own bags that's just wearing on a nerve, on pressure, jobs, boyfriend, girlfriend problems, abuse problems, money problems, this stress of what's going on in the world problems. And you put all that together, it's no wonder we don't have road rage all the time. It's no wonder that we don't yell at people at Walmart, get out of my way, and knock them down, because nobody has a place to vent. And we've got to come to a society to where I look at you and look into your eyes and say, are you okay? What can I do for you today? Can I be there for you? How can I help? And we do that, the world will be a better place.
Us saying, hey, how's it going? Versus, hey, how are you really doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one thing that I am constantly stressing within my family unit is that there is a difference between a surface level hello, how are you, and a deeper level, hey, are you okay?
Well, this goofy thing right here destroys relationships because we'll be passing each other in the hallway. Hey, how are you? And never stop this to go eye to eye with you. And the reason that I consider you a friend is because why? We stopped, looked eye to eye, and said, hey, what's up? How's it going? And we took time for each other and we became friends just like that on different sides of the country. You're still in Vegas, right?
I'm in Nevada.
Okay, you're in Nevada. Okay, we'll leave it at that. And I'm in Houston, but we became immediate friends just because we took a few minutes to connect. And that connection doesn't happen anymore, or very few times. That's why I love face-to-face meetings, to where I can get in people's eye contact and really say, hey, what's going on? Let's talk, and give you some quality time. And it makes all the difference in the world. Makes all the difference.
Thank you so much for your time. While we're wrapping everything up, I kind of want to go over your podcast and the 2 books that you have.
Sure. I have this book this one's blue. The one you have is brown, but this is the hardback edition. This is Shattered by the Darkness. Been out about a year or two. I think February of 2018, something like that. It's still available, doing very well still on Amazon. It's in the top 100 in some departments in Amazon right now. So Shattered by the Darkness, that's my life story with the abuse, how I put it all back together. The second book that's coming out, hopefully in the next month, is called Overcoming the Darkness, The Roadmap to Hope. That'll be available, all the Barnes & Noble and Amazons and all that. And that is how to overcome if you have a situation that you need help with. It's a roadmap literally back to hope. It'll have a companion journal. And one thing that's kind of pausing the printing is I'm working on a companion journal for kids. I want the teenagers and the 12s through 18s to have a book that's going to teach them. And it's called, I'm thinking about titling it, When a Dark Cloud Comes, how to deal with that and be able to write it down and learn the process of and how to put them down on paper. And then I have a Sunday night radio show that you're going to be on here shortly, a week from Sunday. It goes out to about almost 1,700,000 people live every Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Central Time. But you can get on that at bbsradio.com. bbsradio.com. It's called Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams. And we spend an hour live having chats like this with people that are professionals, physicians, social workers, teachers, advocates. I had a judge on not too long ago that worked with the juvenile justice system, and also people that want to share their story of trauma that they've endured. How did you make it through it? And I love that show. Then it goes out into the podcast world, over about 115 networks. I don't know how all that works, but you can actually go on and do on-demand listening anytime you want from your car or whatever on iPhone. If you have an iPhone, you can literally just touch a Siri and go Breaking the Silence, and it comes right up on your phone.
Beautiful.
But if they want to get in touch with me, I really seriously want to give you the number. The deal's right here. It's 832-396-3776. 6525. Any time of the day, 24/7. You need somebody to talk to, 832-396-6525. Or I don't know if you're going to put it up on a page, but my email address, if you would post that for me, I would love to. It's GAWILLI1 at texaschildrens.org. Email me, and I usually respond within 5 to 10 minutes, 24/7. I don't sleep much, so I respond really quick, and we can talk. And all of this stuff is free of charge, and I would love to be a help and a champion for you and your listeners. Anybody I can help, I'd love to.
Continue to keep the conversation going here on my channel, and I'm sure that my subscribers are gonna love talking to you as well. So thank you so much.
Well, keep being the champion that you are. Keep being the smiling person that you are. The impact, I knew when you walked into the room, somebody important and special just walked into my presence, and it was you that day, and it's because of your heart. Keep that as brightly lit as it is now, and the work that you're doing is second to none, and I applaud you, and just encourage you to keep on doing it. And it takes a while to get the tracking going with these podcasts and video casts and all that, but eventually, as genuine as you are, it'll pick up, and there'll be, before you know it, hundreds and thousands and millions of people listening to you and the people that you have on. I just know that. I feel it. Anything I can ever do to help you, I'm here.
I appreciate that so much, Gregory. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Because they knew nothing about it until the book came out. Yeah, so yeah, they knew nothing about it.
For reading?
Yeah, I sent it to them a chapter at a time as I was writing it. They knew nothing until they started getting it and go, Dad, what's going on? Just read the book. And that's how we found out. That's how I told them.
Oh, wow. So what was that conversation like after the fact?
It was interesting. They all responded with letters and calls and tears and Dad, I love you so much. You're awesome. And now I understand why things happened the way they did, and that we couldn't go to Grandpa's house, and you always were there and protected us like that. So it was good, but it took a while to process that, to get to that stage. They knew they were proud, but they didn't know how does that all play out? Because they love Grandpa, of course. How could that have happened and we not know about it? And yeah, it was wild.
Was it on your father's deathbed that you guys were having like your forgiveness conversations, or how was that for you? Like, how did it end?
Yeah, he was on the ventilator, so he couldn't respond. I don't even know if he heard me. But as I was talking to him and went through everything that he did to me, I told him I forgave him. And before the conversation was over, there was tears coming out of his eyes, at the corner of his eyes, even though he was on a ventilator and never responded. There's no doubt in my mind, I know that he heard me because of the tears. So when people tell you, oh, they don't understand, they're in a coma, baloney. I don't believe that. I think inside they hear. Then he died a few days later. But that whole day was about me, not him. It was for me to forgive him, not for him, so he could die in peace, but me, so when he died, I could live in peace. And it's provided me that. I'm glad I did that.